In this short video, we will talk about what API is and what is REST. API stands for Application Programming Interface. Application is the software, any software that has a programming interface. So, what is a programming interface? You use interface in your daily life. When you press the button on your microwave, it heats your food. You don't care or understand what happens in the microwave. All you care about is that your food gets warm. That button is the interface that the microwave offers to you. API is analogous to that. It offers you a way to use the software without knowing the internals of it. Here is another way to look at it. API is a contract. An application defines that if you give me X, I will give you Y in return. That's what an API is. API architecture is usually explained in terms of client and server. The application sending the request is called the client, and the application sending the response back is called the server. Now that you understand what an API is, let's talk about REST. REST is the most popular form of API used in the software world today. It stands for Representational State Transfer, and it is used by applications to talk to each other in a standardized way. This makes more sense if you know what domain-driven design is. REST defines a way to represent the state of an object in your domain using the common HTTP methods like GET, POST, and DELETE. You will find a list of these common HTTP methods down in the description. According to the REST standard, your application or the software must expose some endpoints. Endpoint is basically a URL that other client software can call to talk with your software. They allow the client to call the previously mentioned HTTP methods. Let's say, for example, you develop a software to create blogs. A blog post can then be represented by its REST API. That means you can fetch a blog post using GET, create a blog post using POST, for example, and you can delete a blog post using the delete method. Endpoints in our example will look like the following. The GET endpoint will fetch the blog post with the given ID. The POST endpoint will be used to create a new blog post. The blog to be created will be sent as a predefined JSON object. The server should then return the ID of the created blog post in the response. Delete endpoint will delete the blog post with the given ID. You might have noticed that we use the plural form of blog post in our endpoints. This is a standard practice followed in the REST world. Here are some important features of the REST API. REST APIs are stateless. That means that the server is not storing any information between the subsequent client calls. You should remember this while designing a REST API. The data that is transferred is in JSON format, which looks something like this. Along with data, REST also supports headers. Headers usually contain the security token and some other information. The response from the server is also standardized. It should contain a HTTP status, for example 200 for OK and 500 for internal error. You will find a link to these codes down in the description. Now that you have a basic idea of what an API is and what REST is, I would like to mention a non-exhaustive list of other APIs that exist. SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol. This is an old type of an API where XML is used to transfer data instead of JSON. RPC, Remote Procedure Calls. This is a non-standardized API where every vendor can define their own endpoints and how the data should look like. And the last one, WebSocket. This is a more modern type of an API. The main advantage being that the client stays connected to the server so that the server can talk back to the client if necessary, which makes it more efficient. This is what is used for push notifications you get on your phone. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope that helped you guys. See you guys in the next one.